Hi, Taurus. Happy early birthday to those of you who are going to be celebrating the last 10 days of April. And welcome to your April 2019 Tarology 33 reading. We have a Celtic Cross spread in front of us as always. And then I also pull a couple of Oracle cards for you that we'll read at the end, and also a Mudra card. Looks like you have some tough sword energy in this spread, but I mean, overall it looks like things will work out well, but definitely maybe some things on your mind, or maybe some verbal altercations that you might go through this month, but we'll see as we go along. In the main situation position, we have the Ace of Cups. So the way I always describe aces is, to me, that they're just in the idea phase at this point. You know, there hasn't actually technically been any action taken towards this plan just yet, but it is an idea that you have. So with it being the cups, you know, this could be an idea to extend a love offer to someone. You know, could just be you're crushing on someone in general. You know, you might not even have any plans to act on it, but it is something that's on your mind. And, you know, there's going to be the sun in your 12th house for most of the month, so that could be part of it too. You know, usually when there's things in the 12th house, it's more things that are up in your headspace that you're not necessarily ready to take action on at that point. So that could be what's going on there. You know, maybe that 12th house energy before the sun officially arrives into your sign just has this, you know, process for you where you're emotionally thinking about this interest of yours, but you're not necessarily acting on it. And on the flip side, it could absolutely be that someone is feeling that way towards you as well. The 12th house energy could work either way. You know, it could be you that has these thoughts in your mind, or someone outside of you that has these thoughts, but they haven't made it known to you yet. So that's the main energy I'm picking up on there. In the challenger obstacle position, we have the Eight of Pentacles and we have the Six of Cups. So this could be playing out a few ways in combination with the card in the main situation. One way it could be is that maybe there's someone, you know, that you are crushing on, but maybe, you know, you've also been working on a relationship with someone from your past. You know, maybe you'd reconciled with them recently, let's say, and then there's a new offer coming around in the near future, or you're thinking about someone else as well. Another way that this could be playing out too, though, is to say that there is someone that you have in mind that you do want to reconnect with from your past, but it's saying that the challenger obstacle is going to be that there's going to be some work that has to be put behind it. So if that's the case, I have a feeling that would be someone that you had a falling out with, because, I mean, we do have the Three of Swords at the bottom of the deck. I see the Five of Swords there, and underneath this, we also have the Four of Swords. So there's definitely indicators that there was some kind of conflict. So if that's the case, it could be saying that now you're at the point where you would like to get things back on track. You know, you would like to reconcile, but it's going to take some work to do so. So, you know, basically maybe a lot of damage had been done is the general idea. And, you know, I'm recording this right before the sun officially moves into Aries, but, you know, basically when that does happen, so if you guys are watching this in April, this energy would have already passed, but right when the sun ends up in Aries, what'll happen is there's going to be a square aspect between Mars and your ruling sign, Venus, at the same time. And Mars is going to be in your sign while that aspect happens. So Mars is going to be a little bit irritable in the sign of Taurus as is, because it's a Venusian-ruled house. And, you know, obviously people always think of them as that Mars-Venus connection being positive between two people, yes. But, you know, think of it like a masculine energy stuck in a totally feminine environment, right? That they're not comfortable being in, you know. So Mars doesn't necessarily feel too comfortable in that sign. And then having your ruler Venus in Aquarius, and that's a sign that Venus isn't necessarily all that comfortable in, and they're going to square each other. You know, it's an aspect that'll only last a couple of days, but obviously it could affect you being a sign ruled by Venus and also having Mars in your sign during that time. So, that could bring some kind of conflicts about. Combine that with the fact that while that's happening, Mercury will still be retrograde, close to Neptune, and that full moon is actually going to be opposite Chiron. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right in that time period that could point to maybe something. You guys might have had a conflict with someone and might have seemed doom and gloom in the moment, but there are energies that'll be passing through in April that could help clear the air in that area. So maybe that's what this is referring to, saying that if you had a falling out with someone, it can be fixed, but it's going to take some work. And, to move it outside of the realm of love, it could also be a creative project that you want to get back off the ground that maybe you used to be pretty connected to in the past. So let's just say, as a random example, since you guys are an earth sign, maybe gardening, right? You used to do gardening as a hobby and maybe you got away from it, and now maybe it's saying this month, especially with the weather turning for some of you, depending on where you live, spring is kicking off. Now you're like, you know what, I really need to get back into that. I enjoyed it. It helped to ground me, whatever the case. But it's saying, all right, you're going to have to put in some work because, you've neglected it for a long time. So that could be what's going on there. But for the majority of you, it could definitely be love, especially with the Three of Swords at the bottom of the deck, too. All right, in the foundation position, we have the Ace of Pentacles and the Seven of Pentacles. So again, we already covered how I feel about aces, that these are just ideas, not necessarily something tangible that you could hold in your hand right now. So this could just be you thinking of ways to, increase your income, right? I mean, who isn't? But as far as where you're at right now, you might not be too content with it, right? And you might be trying to think of ways, well, how can I boost my finances? So if we combine that with this could also be pointing to you maybe looking toward a second source of income, right? So maybe you keep your regular 9-to-5 job that maybe it pays you decently, but you don't feel emotionally fulfilled. So you're like, all right, in addition to this 9-to-5, maybe I could also reconnect with a hobby of mine and see if I could monetize that in some way, right? So maybe that's what's going on there. So you're really trying to think of a way to, okay, how can I supplement my current income to, and also just feel better about it. So that could be what those cups energies are about there too. Doesn't necessarily have to be a love interest, but something that you love to do, basically, for lack of a better way to say it. And it could just be as well that, you're in a job, let's say, and you're working towards getting a promotion or a raise of some kind. And, maybe they're telling you, okay, yes, your raise, we'll be able to give it to you in May, let's say, right? So it's like, okay, you might know that eventually you'll get it, but you have to wait a while. So that could be what has you feeling like, okay, just have to get through this tough period and then finally that money will kick in, right? Especially with that Eight of Pentacles there as well. And this is actually a Taurus card, too. This represents the last 10 degrees of Taurus. So that's another indicator that could point to May, too. Maybe mid-May, let's say. So maybe you're even in a job and you're thinking of shifting to a new job. But maybe, so you're still working at your current one that you're not too happy with, but, you already got the okay that, yes, we'll offer you this new job, but you can't start it until mid-May. So like, all right, well, in the meantime, I have to keep, working at this job I don't like until I can officially start at the new one that I'm excited about, All right, in the past position, we have the Magician card, the Knight of Pentacles, and the Four of Swords. So to me, this could just be saying in the past you were working on manifesting something and probably working at it pretty hard as well, but you might have felt like it just wasn't taking off for you. This Knight of Pentacles energy, it's technically the court card for Virgo, but it could represent you easily since you're also an earth sign. But this is just an energy. Represents something that is tangible and stable, but it's just very... it might have taken a really long time for the offer to come. Or maybe, you given up hope on the offer coming because it was taking so long. That's another way that could be playing out as well. And then with the Four of Swords there, that shows me that, if we want to look at that in the context of Three of Swords, maybe that's what this disappointment was about, right? Maybe you thought for sure, okay, I did everything I needed to do to get this raise, this promotion, or a new job altogether. Maybe the offer was taking forever to come through, and you pretty much gave up hope on it, but you started to heal from that. That could be what's going on there. Especially given the fact that, if we just look in his position in the spread, he's pointing right towards that. So this could definitely be saying something you were trying to manifest that was just having difficulty. So if that's the case, we also have to look at where his other hand is pointing, up towards the Oracle cards. So when we get to the Oracle cards, we'll keep this particular position in mind, see if it adds any additional insight to what exactly is going on there. All right, in the present position, we have the Five of Swords. So let's talk about what this could be pertaining to. So let's say this was a job situation, right? You were applying for, hoping to get a promotion, let's say, or maybe just applying in a new job altogether. And if that's the case, this could be saying that some of the other people that you were dealing with were actually using underhanded tactics, possibly, to get the upper hand. Maybe giving you misinformation, right? Someone else got this card too, and I had a feeling it was related to finances. I can't remember who. One of the fire signs. So if you also have a fire placement in your chart, you might want to check that video as well. But the way I was describing it there was to say, an example of what this could be is, let's say you are at one job, right? And you're like, okay, this is all right, but I want more, right? Whether it's more money or you just want to feel more fulfilled with your job, so you apply to a new one. And, when they call your employer for references, they might purposely give you a kind of crappy review, in an attempt to A, possibly just be petty, and B, try to ensure that you aren't able to leave, So basically it'd be one of those situations where they know they're not paying you what they should be, but at the same time they don't want you to go somewhere else either, which would suck if that's what you're dealing with, don't get me wrong, but that's one way that could play out. In the love sense, another way it could play out is the way I described this in context with the Three of Swords. So I'm glad that it is there with this, is to say that, to me, this represents someone who skips that Four of Swords healing phase and just, basically they still have those wounds from the Three of Swords still with them, but, they tell themselves that they're over it. Oh no, I'm over that, that's in the past, but they're really still carrying that pain around with them. And if that's the case, if you haven't taken the time to properly heal, then generally speaking, you end up hurting other people because, whatever the case may be, they might get too close and it triggers something in you from the past situation, and then you do something to self-sabotage it, basically. So, could be you or the other person you're dealing with, quite honestly, because someone was in that Four of Swords energy in the past, which to me does show that someone was making the attempt to heal properly. And maybe that's what it was too. Maybe you guys had some kind of an argument, right? And one of you was trying to be mature about it and take the time off to heal properly, and then maybe the other person got impatient and started a conflict, just because. And if that's the case, I always say with that Five of Swords energy, it's one of those things that you go into knowing that nothing good is going to come out of it, but you do it anyway. So that's why it's usually pointed to as being tied to ego. So, like I said, that could totally, if that resonates with you, if you're watching this in April and you look back on that time when Mars was squaring Venus, that could definitely be when it happened, because there's a whole lot of things going on all at once when that happens. And even though it's just a transit that lasts a few days, the damage done during that time could last beyond that, obviously. So, something to keep in mind there. And if that's how you're feeling, you're kind of in that energy, and you do see this before that aspect happens, just keep in mind that, hey, try to give it a few days, and see, because maybe it's just that aspect that really has that energy bubbling up in you that makes you want to do that, but maybe it's not in your best interest overall. All right. And then your future position, we have the Nine of Wands. And to me, this is just an energy of being guarded. The way I always explain it too is that this is someone who they're holding on to that wand tightly because like they don't see what they have in the background, right? Like, so let's say you're at a place of employment and this whole thing is about, you feel like you're being overworked, right? I mean, we do have Eight of Pentacles. That tends to be someone who is enjoying what they're doing, but maybe that's why it's in the challenge position, right? Saying that you're having difficulty enjoying it. And this is more like how you're feeling. So maybe you're being overworked, you're getting bombarded with a lot of stuff at work and you feel like, they're not paying you enough or you need some help, right? This might be one of those situations where you might think that that's all you have to stand on, right? Just that one wand, which is to say, if I ask them for help or for more money, they might not take me seriously because I've only accomplished this much, right? But with those 8 wands behind it, that basically is saying that, well, not quite, because, while you might feel that that's all you're bringing to the table, others actually do see all that you have brought to the table. So whether that be a new job altogether, maybe you're, reluctant to apply to a job because you're like, oh, I'm not qualified enough. They're not gonna, they're not gonna give me the job, right? Maybe that's what, and that could be what the self-sabotage thing is there, saying that, you're taking yourself out of the game before you even try. So if that's the case, I would say whether it's talking to your current employer about maybe giving you a raise or giving you, having someone else around to help pick up the slack because you're just feeling overwhelmed with what you have to do right now, it looks like that talk might go across a little better than you think. And likewise, if it's just applying for a new job, but feeling like, oh, I don't have the qualifications for that, there's no way they'd even take me seriously, at least give it a try, All right. In the position of your influence on the situation, we have the High Priestess. There we go. So, generally speaking, I see this as one of the major arcana cards for Pisces, but overall, this really just points to being able to trust your intuition and, being well in touch with your emotions, but also having a firm control over them as well. Like I always say, I view this as almost like she has her foot on the moon symbol there, which is to say, their emotions are right in front of them. She's aware of her emotions, but she also has a firm grasp on them. She's not going to, fly off the handle or something like that, right? So, but another way this could play out too is to say that you might not be communicating too. So again, like we said in the job setting, it's like, you have this feeling, what you want to say, what you want to do, but you're not feeling comfortable actually expressing it. And, Mars is actually going to move out of your sign right at the beginning of April, basically, into the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is your second house, and you guys are the natural rulers of the second house. So if it is related to finances, that'd actually be a great time to speak up about, like I said, whether you have a need for more finances or whatever the case may be, or you just feel like for what they're giving you, there should be more help in your work environment. That says, it might be a bit of a challenge for you because the High Priestess, again, can come off a little bit closed off, but, could just be saying follow your intuition too. So intuitively, if you feel like there is a job you should apply for, right, but then you talk yourself out of it, try to avoid doing that and really get in touch with your intuition and see, okay, is this really me being called to do this and I'm just worrying about it not going well or what? Because in the environment position, we actually have the Nine of Swords. So this could just be saying the energy around, like I said, those crazy energies that are taking place right at the end of March that you might still be feeling the repercussions from as we kick off April. Maybe that's what has you feeling that way. The sun being in your 12th house, like I said, could be one of those things where you have these ideas, but you don't necessarily feel comfortable bringing them out just yet. If that's the case, obviously towards the end of the month when the sun does hop into your sign, and it'll be conjunct Uranus too, which is also in your sign, that could really give you that impetus to finally make that move, whatever it may be. But this could just be saying, these are just fears that you have. And if it's someone else, it could, going back to the relationship possibility, right? If it's someone else, this could be saying that this is how they feel. Now, the key word there is feel, as far as, even though this is a swords and it's a thought card, the reason I say feel is, you look at those swords, the way this person's reacting is almost like they feel like they were actually stabbed in the back, but clearly they weren't, These are just, those swords are just in their mind. So, so it's still a little bit foggy for me as far as what end you would be on if there was a conflict, if you were the one who initiated the conflict or someone initiated it with you. But if that's what happened, I would say trust your intuition with that too, as far as to say, okay, is this something that I can repair? Is it something I should repair even, right? Or was that really the last straw and I should move on, In the hopes or fears position, we have the Four of Pentacles. So, to me, I'm going to say this is a fear, a fear of the energy remaining closed and blocked off between the two of you. And again, if this goes back to finances as well, there's a fear there too, a fear of a lack. Normally I don't see this card in that way necessarily, but given some of the energies around it, that could be what it is. Like I said, it could be more of like a fear-based thing than actually something that actually is going to happen. So, something to keep in mind there. And then in the outcome position, you actually did get two pretty good cards. So we have the Four of Wands. This is actually an Aries card too. So that would be the middle, well, let's say between the 10th and 20th of April. That's the degrees that this represents. So maybe that's when things will turn around for you. And then you also have the World card. So, these are two really good cards to have. To me, this represents a completion. Usually it's a successful completion. It is related to Saturn as well, this particular card, but I view it as the North Node personally. But that combined with the Four of Wands, maybe it's saying that for whatever reason, if it is a relationship context, let's say, you were meant to go through these conflicts to, this was just something you guys had to work through, right? And that could be what Uranus is about as well. Like, I feel like a lot of people overblow what Uranus in your sign is going to mean for you. The way I always say this, for me personally, I feel like if you're already being authentic, the effects of Uranus aren't going to be felt as much. Like if you look at Aries in your life that just went through that transit, they're still Aries, right? They didn't turn into some mystical beast with wings or something crazy like that. They're still Aries. And part of that, though, is it's a little bit easier for them to be authentic, sometimes to their detriment, but a lot of times it works out in their favor. Whereas for you guys, you can get stuck in patterns sometimes, unfortunately. So if that's where you're at, where there's things you want to do or need to do, but you just put them off because you're like, well, this is what I've always done. I don't feel comfortable making that change. Then the Uranus transit could be a bit more tough. But yeah, generally speaking, when the sun comes into your sign and it's going to be making contact with Uranus, that could definitely help to make a shift for you. And maybe it's a move that you've had that's long overdue, and that's what finally, gives you that little push. This could also be career related as well, not necessarily relationships, meaning that, that Four of Wands could just represent the stability. So like I said, if it is that you got a promotion, right, but maybe, it was just taking forever, you felt like maybe you'd lost out, or a new job altogether, this is saying that, you should be feeling more stable, which is definitely an energy that you guys like too, around this time period. So overall, it looks like things are going to pan out pretty well. But yeah, I will say, even right before April starts, there's definitely some bumpy energies to make it through. And maybe that's what these things are pointing to there, saying that before, April even really kicks off, you already deal with some of these harsh energies. But through most of April, there's not really too many intense aspects happening, especially none that would impact you directly. So should start to feel like smoother sailing as the month goes along. All right, move on to your oracle cards. So the first one we have is Peace. There's the artwork for it there and the number 23. So immediately before we even look at the messages there, this ties in with that Six of Cups energy we talked about, where maybe if you reconcile, that maybe there is a conflict that might happen right before April kicks off or immediately when April starts. I have a feeling to be before because of those aspects I mentioned. And maybe this is saying that, okay, you guys can actually reconcile if that's the case. All right, let's take a look at the messages. Someone else got this month too, and I did the fire signs first since, really it's mostly Aries season when I'm recording these, so do keep that in mind that, like I said before, if you have a prominent fire placement in addition to your Taurus placement, you might want to check that video too and see, because if that's also the video as this card, there could be some parallels that'll help fill in some of the gaps for you guys. Or if you're dealing with a fire sign, obviously. Alright, essential meaning says freedom from attachment, radical acceptance. The Oracle's message says it doesn't get any better than this: a quiet mind, a heart fulfilled, freedom from want, and the soul's satisfaction. The way to peace is through radical acceptance. Everything in your world is exactly as it should be. Harmony is beautiful. Enjoy it. So, to me, that could be pointing to that high priestess energy, right? A quiet mind, a heart fulfilled, freedom from want, and the soul satisfaction. That to me points to that high priestess type energy. Relationship message says, when two people are in true alignment with one another, they have an innate harmony between them. They are as two perfectly tuned instruments playing together. Sometimes it's impossible to tell who is who. Peace is yours, and it is to be savored. Now, to be fair, looking at these two cards, if this is you and another person, clearly you guys are not in the same headspace right now. The colors are similar, that's about it, right? Other than that, it looks like this person's having a rough go at it. So, but again, like I said, that could just be pointing to the temporary state of the conflict, right? Nothing that's necessarily doom and gloom, given that you do end with the Four of Wands. So maybe it's saying, all right, you guys go through the spat, you fix things are back on track by the end of the month. All right, the prosperity message says, this is one of those times when you're capable of clear vision about your work and how you create your prosperity. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're called by a presence to step into your power. Just being is enough, for you are in peaceful harmony with spirit, and it shows in your work. So that's something to keep in mind there. That could be talking again about that Eight of Pentacles energy, like we said, really putting in the work, and that Seven of Pentacles may be feeling like, oh, is there ever going to be anything more than this, right? And that Nine of Wands, like we said, if you're feeling uncomfortable asking for help or asking for more money, whatever the case may be, or applying for a job that you really want but you might not feel qualified for. All of those messages in a prosperity message seem to point to saying that, hey, keep doing what you're doing, and, your work should speak for itself, basically. All right. And now let's look at the next oracle card you guys got, which was Starfish Spirit. This is from the Spirit Animal Oracle deck. And it says, open to infinite possibility. So that kind of makes me think of the High Priestess as well. There's the artwork, and the number on this one's 59. So, I don't know, maybe some of you born on May 9th, maybe that really is going to resonate for you. I don't know, we'll see. Alright, this says, stretched out on the beach, the starfish opens fully to the rays of the sun, to the power of potential. As you look out toward the horizon, do you open up to infinite possibility? Spirit is the source of opportunities beyond your wildest imagination and ensures endless possibilities are available. At this time, Starfish Spirit urges you to stretch past the limits of your everyday perception and comfort zone to dream of bigger things and imagine with even greater hope and faith, for miraculous potential is shining down on you. Feel it, bask in it, and open yourself to be filled with inspiration. This is a very fortunate sign that Starfish Spirit has come to remind you of your infinite potential. So yeah, to me that again seems to point to the High Priestess energy. And, maybe it's even saying that in the past you did try to manifest something, right? You did put yourself on the line and you felt like it never got off the ground, so maybe you've just been gun shy about doing it again. If that's the case, it looks like it's saying you should have a little more faith if you wanted to try something again. All right, and then lastly, we have a mudra card for you. So, for those of you who don't know, I've been pulling mudra cards for each of the signs starting this year. So basically what a mudra card is, it's a hand gesture or a pose that you would make while meditating. And, usually the time you hold it could vary. Usually it's a minimum of 5 minutes, and then some say 45 minutes, even beyond that for some. But if you're not used to meditating, 5 minutes should be at least a good enough start. All right, and the keyword for this one is generosity. This is the actual pose or gesture itself that you would do. And then we'll turn the card around so you can see what the messages are. And this is the Surabhi Mudra, by the way. Let me, all right, get it to focus. There we go. All right. So, hold this up for a bit if you guys wanted to take a screenshot of it or pause it to read what it says. Now I'll move it up so you can see the rest as well. All right. So you could see as far as the benefits, it says balances the Vata dosha and awakens the Manipura chakra, treats cough and bile disorders, improves memory, reduces inflammation, especially related to rheumatism, awakens empathy, gives insight into one's hidden gifts and talents, and how these can be used to benefit all beings, increases devotion and spiritual radiance. So I will say that definitely does seem to go along well with the High Priestess energy showing up on your influence in a situation. So, if you do feel like you're having difficulty getting in touch with that energy, then maybe this mudra could actually really help you out in that regard. Well, the arthritis part, it almost looks like you could get arthritis trying to do this actual specific mudra, but, hopefully you guys get some benefit from this either way. Aside from that, we'll wrap up here for the month. Like I said, happy birthday to those of you who are celebrating towards the end of April. If you guys want a personal reading, you could check out the About section of this reading for more info on that. And you could also check me out on Instagram, where we have a little bit more fun with tarot and astrology there. But if not, I'll see you guys next month. All right, bye.